Evolutions, a game mode which has really added another level to Ultimate Team, because no longer is it just about going through matches and collecting packs, but now it's also going through and trying to upgrade your players. And if you couldn't tell, I'm a fan. That's why in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some additional tips that you could be using to really take advantage of this. But before we do get into the video, if you're looking for some cheap, fast, reliable FC coins, then there is no better place than U4GM. There is a link in the description down below, and if you use code Fanatic, you'll get a 15% discount whilst it's still Black Friday. But as soon as that promo ends, it goes back down to 5%. So get your coins whilst the deal is still there. Getting back into today's video. We have spoken about evolutions before. There was a video that we released the second that Ultimate Team released, breaking down the correct way to grind evolutions, except a few things have since changed. The whole idea of evolution remains the same, but back then we actually breezed straight through the content, completing all evolutions within the first day or two. And at that point, there were no evolutions which required coins. But since then, we've seen quite a few, costing anywhere between 50,000 going all the way up to around 150,000. And it's likely as time goes on, especially as we go into December, then eventually in January with Team of the Year, and gradually start to progress throughout the end of the year, things are going to get even more expensive. So we need a new plan of action. Firstly, when it comes to your standard evolutions, these are ones that you could just go over to this game mode, select any of the players that fit the requirements for the challenges and start them. You should be doing that. Even if it is a bronze or silver player, which doesn't look that appealing, it's still worth going through. We've already seen, even over the past few months, that there have been challenges which will allow you to resubmit those who you've already submitted as an evolution player. So what could eventually be a bronze player that gets gradually upgraded to potentially a silver evolution, that silver evolution may fit the requirements again for a future challenge, which can then be upgraded to be something absolutely insane. Now, in terms of the players that you should be upgrading, and this is a rule that applies through everything that we're going to be going through, you either want to be going for players who are overpowered, who are going to be able to be used for future SBCs, just in case you don't actually use them within your team, or they're going to have some sentimental value, in that it's a team that you support or you just look up to the player in real life. With that, it doesn't matter if you're going to use them within your team or SBCs, because you're just going to use them as a collector's item. The choice in the player that you go for really is entirely up to you. I do recommend that you put them within your objective team. Now, if this is one of your very first videos that you're coming across this channel, I recommend that you have several teams for several different things as part of Ultimate Team. The three main ones that I recommend is that you have your main team. This is what you're going to use to be competitive in the likes of division rivals, champions playoffs, or even a champions final. You then want to have an objective team, which is just going to be a team that you could use within division rivals or even within squad battles or even friendlies. And it's just there so that you can complete objectives, including completing players as part of evolutions. And then you also have a lone team, which you can then use as part of friendlies and moments, with each of those players as part of that lone team having one game remaining. Because from there, they're never going to lose their contracts. You're going into friendlies where contracts do not count, and moments are not full games, so therefore contracts do not count there. And theoretically, even though you can't sell these players or submit them into SBCs, on paper, you technically own them forever, giving you a great return on investment whilst being able to hopefully play with some pretty sick players. So in terms of evolution players, I recommend using them within that objective team. That way you can complete the challenge itself for that player, which is most likely to win a game, score a goal, get an assist, keep a clean sheet, depending on what the player and the challenge is. And then you can also complete additional objectives with that exact same team, hopefully stacking packs, coins, XP, and also upgrading players. You're getting the maximum amount of rewards for the time in which you're committing. That brings us on to the evolution players, which cost coins. No matter what they cost, now is the point in when you need to start thinking about this a bit more. And whereas before I said that you need to look at players in one of three ways: a player that you can use for SBCs, or a player that has some significant value to you in the real world, being a team that you support or a player that you look up to. When it comes to spending coins, it's not really worth spending coins on these evolution players just to go and use those within SBCs. There are certainly cheaper options and ones which don't take as much time. Some of these challenges will require you to play within a much highly competitive game mode such as Champions, where before you could get away with just playing into squad battles on semi-pro difficulty. So you don't want to be spending those coins and then also going into several games that you need to be competitive in, where it's going to be a complete sweat fest, only for you to then submit them into an SBC, where you could have likely just bought a player off the transfer market for less than that and also faster than that. So that one's off the table. However, the other two are still big factors, probably more than the previous evolutions. If you're going to be spending coins, you need to make sure that it's a player that is going to fit into your team, but not just that, they're going to last quite a bit of time and they're going to improve it. And that's very difficult to follow through with because of how quickly Ultimate Team changes. We get new promos every single Friday, new players get released, and as we're going into December, we know that there's going to be some sort of festive holiday promo, which is going to give some great players. And then as soon as we get into January, we start to see the full effects of a market crash, which happens just before Team of the Year. And Team of the Year will bring loads of players. You get the Team of the Year, and then you also get honorable mentions, which are also typically pretty good. So to have a player right now which you can buy into as part of a challenge through evolutions, which then is actually going to be useful within the next few weeks or even few months, so that you can get a return on investment with it, is not really likely. It really does come down to the challenges itself. That's why most creators within the community recommend that you go for a player that's you're going to use as a collector's item, someone that you look up to in real life or plays for the team that you support. If you could get a player which plays for the team you support or look up to, and also they're overpowered, which you're going to continuously keep on using within Ultimate Team, that is the best case scenario. That is a win-win. So if you can find those, definitely go for them. In terms of the challenges that come with these are typically slightly harder, but if there are challenges available for these players which are slightly easier in that you can go into squad battles or division rivals or champions where you actually have a choice, then it makes sense to follow what we said previously and put them within that objective team. You can be slightly more laid back, complete your games so that you can finish the challenges for the player that you're trying to upgrade, whilst also completing other objectives which are going to give you additional rewards on top. That's the benefit of using your objective team. If not, and you are forced to play competitive division rivals or champions, essentially just champions, then you need to go through and start using your main team. You want to win games, get goals, keep clean sheets, whatever the challenge may be. And that is the way in which you want to handle these types of players. With the price tag on some of these, you do need to always ask the question, why? This is also the case with a lot of player SBCs. It seems like every single year EA releases more and more player SBCs, and even though, yes, it's content, most of the time you're not going to be able to do anything with them. Based on that previous point, in that there's going to be more content which easily replaces it, so the version that you bought into is no longer the best it could be, so there's better options at a lower price. And of course, with this being a football game, you can only play with 11 players at any given moment. You can have them on the bench and substitute them on, but there's also not a load of space for you to go and do that. And it feels like this year, because there's a lot more content, it happened way sooner than most people expected. For example, and this wasn't even a challenge, and luckily I didn't even put that many coins in. It wasn't evolutions, but it was player of the month. I went for player of the month Madison. It didn't really cost me anything because I already had the players in my club just by going through grinding out objectives and in the various different game modes. The players that I received from those rewards I submitted into James Madison and completed him. And about 3 weeks later, there was an 87 version rated of his card as part of objectives, which were also very easy to complete. It didn't cost me anything, just a bit of time, but still, even if it did cost me, it still would have been cheaper than buying into a player of the month. And of course, he's now 87 rated, whereas before I had the 86 rated player of the month. I now have 2 James Maddisons, and of course, I'm not able to go and use both. So it means that I'm most likely going to keep the 87, and then at some point, I'm going to use his 86 for an SBC, which puts me in a position where I could have just used an 86 rated player and never bought into James Maddison. That's the way that I see it, and it's coming into a very similar way with evolutions. And that's the biggest thing that you're going to have to tackle. But anyway, this is Evolutions. It's still a very fun game mode to go through. It brings another level to Ultimate Team just for you to grind out and upgrade players. Much better than what we had before, where you would then need to use objectives to get a player card, then use that player card within your team, which will then give you a second player card, but just as a higher rated or in a different position, and you need to use that one for you to go and get a third and final. Very tedious and very boring to go through. This one is so much better, there's so much more crossover, and it is so much more useful. But there are a lot of things which you need to be careful of. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see a bit more from me, then I highly recommend clicking the next video on screen. That video has been specifically selected just for you. So click that and I'll be over there to guide you through absolutely everything. I hope you enjoy.